There are places on Earth where the air itself feels alive, thick, shimmering, and ancient. In the Amazon rainforest, every breath carries the memory of 1,000,000 years. Some scientists say this is the planet's lungs. Others suggest it's more than that, a living consciousness of green, whispering through mist and root and rain. Here, the air hums with quiet electricity. The canopy rises like a cathedral, woven from leaves older than empires. Rivers curl through it like veins of liquid glass, carrying sediment, oxygen, and stories down to the sea. And somewhere beneath that endless green, millions of unseen lives pulse together in rhythm: frogs, orchids, beetles, fungi, vapor, light. Welcome to Nightfall Travels, a channel where the world slows down and science becomes a lullaby. If this is your first time here, take a moment to breathe deeply, gently. Let your shoulders fall. Let the rhythm of your breath match the quiet pulse of the earth. And while you listen, I'd love to know, where are you tonight? What time glows on your clock as the rainforest begins to hum? Write it softly in the comments. Your city, your hour, your small corner of this spinning world. Because here, in this shared quiet, we all breathe the same air. Now close your eyes, if you wish. Let's begin our descent through the clouds, through the fading twilight, into the green labyrinth below. We'll drift through the science of the Amazon, not as explorers with maps and data, but as wanderers tracing the heartbeat of life itself. Inhale. The air is heavy, warm, sweet with rot and renewal. Exhale. The forest exhales with you 1,000,000,000 leaves, releasing vapor into the dim golden dusk. Each droplet hangs for a heartbeat, then drifts upward, feeding clouds that will return tomorrow as rain. This is the first truth of the Amazon. It rains itself into being. Moisture released by trees becomes sky, then falls again, endlessly recycling in a great loop of breath. Scientists call this biotic pumping, the way vegetation helps summon rain through transpiration. But to stand here, in the hush of 100 billion droplets, it feels more like breathing with a god. Close by, a cicada trembles. Its song lasts only hours, yet echoes across miles. Ants march along an invisible path, carrying fragments of leaves they will never eat. They feed a fungus instead, a living partnership, older than civilization. And this is another truth. The Amazon is a network of deals and exchanges, where nothing truly stands alone. Every vine that climbs borrows the strength of another. Every fallen fruit becomes a home for someone else. Even the great kapok tree, towering 100 feet above the forest floor, relies on tiny fungi woven through its roots, microscopic allies, trading sugar for minerals in a silent, ancient bargain. Listen closely. You might think the rainforest is chaos, a riot of noise and motion, but it is, in fact, a perfect equilibrium of millions of small, repeating acts. A bird calls, an insect answers, a seed falls, a root drinks. Each gesture balanced by another, like the inhale and exhale of a single vast being. There is a theory, whispered among ecologists, that the Amazon isn't just a forest, it's a self-regulating organism, something close to what scientists call a Gaian system. It regulates temperature, humidity, and even carbon in the air, not by design, but through the sheer complexity of life. Each tree, each river, each gust of wind plays a note in this living symphony, maintaining a climate that allows itself to continue. As night deepens, light becomes liquid soft, diffused through layers of mist and chlorophyll. Somewhere, a jaguar moves like smoke. Its paws make no sound. A low hoot echoes from the canopy, and a chorus of frogs begins hundreds of species, each with its own pattern, its own rhythm, never colliding, always harmonizing. Biologists call this acoustic partitioning, how species evolve to occupy different sound spaces in the same environment. To your sleepy mind, it sounds like 1,000 lullabies sung at once, each perfectly tuned not to disturb the others. Imagine lying beneath that canopy now, your body sinking into the damp earth. You feel the heartbeat of rain above and the vibration of insects below. The warmth of decay meets the coolness of shadow. You breathe in oxygen that left a leaf only moments ago. And for a flicker of time, you realize the air inside your lungs is not separate from the air of this place. It's one breath, yours, the forests, the planets. Slowly, the awareness fades into calm. You drift between thought and silence, between wonder and sleep. And as the first part of our journey closes, the forest does what it always has. It exhales, and somewhere deep in its lungs, your own breath joins the chorus. The river begins not as a river, but as a whisper. High in the Andes, where the air thins and freezes, trickles of snowmelt gather in silence. They twist and merge, forming thin ribbons that shimmer like veins of silver light. Each droplet carries minerals, memories, and microscopic seeds of life that will one day feed the lowland giants. By the time this water reaches the basin, it has traveled more than 4,000 miles. It becomes the Amazon, a moving mirror wider than imagination, carrying 1/5 of all the world's fresh water to the sea. Its flow is so vast that it pushes salt water from the Atlantic hundreds of kilometers out into the ocean. From space, satellites can see the river's plume, a pale green breath stretching far into the blue, where fresh water and salt water swirl together like yin and yang. Scientists have measured this boundary, tracing how nutrients and sediments drift and fall, feeding plankton, which feed fish, which feed dolphins. Yes, dolphins, the pink river dolphins, Inia geoffrensis, with their soft, flexible necks and intelligent eyes. Their skin glows faintly rose beneath the water, colored by tiny capillaries that help them regulate temperature. Locals say these dolphins were once people-enchanted beings who returned to the water. Science says they adapted perfectly to a world where sight is useless and sound rules everything. Both are true in their own way. You imagine the soundscape below the surface. Clicks, whistles, the soft sweep of fins. Every call echoes off submerged roots and tangled vines, painting the world in sound. Sonar, or echolocation, allows these creatures to see with music, like blind poets navigating by rhythm alone. It is said that water has memory. In laboratories, molecules cannot remember, but in nature, every current does. The river holds the fingerprints of mountains, storms, and fallen leaves. It carries the breath of frogs and the pollen of flowers that bloom only for a single night. To drift upon it is to move through time itself. And beneath it, a secret. Few know that another river flows below the Amazon, deep underground, in darkness. The Hamza River, discovered by scientists in the 2010 seconds, mirrors the surface river's path for thousands of kilometers. It moves slowly, through porous rock, like a buried twin, unseen, unheard, yet connected in every way. The surface river rushes, the underground one crawls. Together, they form a double heartbeat, one fast, one slow, sustaining the entire basin. At night, mist rises where the water meets the air. It's filled with spores, bacteria, and even microscopic algae, a drifting, invisible cloud of life. Each breath you take beside the river is shared with countless unseen beings. You inhale their stories, their chemistry, their persistence. And perhaps if you listen closely, you can hear what they're saying. Remember us. We are part of you. Somewhere far downstream, thunder rolls. The forest answers with a flash of light, a chain of fireflies flickering above the reeds. Their glow is chemistry in motion, luciferin meeting oxygen, transforming energy into quiet beauty. It's one of nature's oldest equations, still perfect after millions of years. And as you watch those tiny green pulses drift above the black water, you realize that light, too, can be alive. You breathe in deeply. The night is damp and fragrant soil, decay, flowers, rain. You let it fill your chest, and something ancient within you softens. It feels like home. The Amazon doesn't just exist, it remembers. It holds within it everything that once lived, everything that still breathes, everything that will be. Somewhere downstream, the river widens again. It slides past a stand of trees where sloths hang like slow-moving fruit. Their fur hosts tiny algae that tint them green camouflage grown from life itself. Each strand of hair is a garden of its own, filled with moths and fungi found nowhere else on Earth. To the sloth, these passengers are not burdens, but symbionts, cohabitants in a personal ecosystem. When it descends to the forest floor to relieve itself only once a week, it fertilizes the very algae that sustain it. The circle closes, silent and perfect. Above you, a nightbird calls low, haunting, distant. Its echo drifts across the canopy like smoke, and for a long moment, the entire forest feels still. The river moves, the mist breathes, but everything else is suspended in a single infinite exhale. The Amazon is not simply alive, it is life, the heartbeat of everything that breathes. And as you drift with it, your own pulse begins to match its rhythm. Slow, soft, endless. Dawn begins with mist. A faint silver light seeps through the canopy, outlining branches and leaves with dew. In the hush before the first bird call, the forest seems to hold its breath. Then a single note, bright and liquid, pierces the air. A tinamou, perhaps, or a trogon. One voice, then another, and another. In minutes, the silence dissolves into an orchestra of wings and whistles. Every morning in the Amazon, billions of creatures wake in perfect sequence. Plants begin their photosynthetic hum, animals rise with the temperature, and insects stir in the leaf litter. If you could measure the energy of this moment, you'd find it equals the output of a small city, all driven by sunlight, filtering through leaves. Each square meter of canopy contains more life than an entire meadow elsewhere. Tiny orchids bloom in the crooks of branches. Bromeliads hold rainwater that becomes miniature ponds. Inside those pools live tadpoles, beetles, and sometimes even snakes, entire worlds inside a single leaf. The Amazon's trees stretch higher than cathedrals, but their roots are surprisingly shallow. Because nutrients are locked in living matter, not soil, trees must compete fiercely for every grain. Some roots sprawl wide across the surface like wings, Others grow in buttresses, vast flared walls that hold giants upright. When rain falls, these structures channel water like gutters, sending streams into the earth. Each drop begins a journey from leaf to branch to trunk to root to river, a liquid choreography older than language. There's a tree here called the Ciba pentandra, the kapok. To the people of the forest, it's sacred. They call it the ladder between worlds. Its trunk rises straight and smooth, its crown like a floating island. Birds, bats, and epiphytes live in its branches. Its seeds drift away on silky fibers, catching sunlight as they fall soft parachutes of life. Botanists study it for its structure, anthropologists for its myth. To both, it's a reminder. Life is not separate forms, but a continuous climb from soil to sky, from root to star. You look up now, and the light filters through leaves like stained glass. Emerald, gold, turquoise, 1,000 shades of green no camera can truly hold. The air smells of wet bark and distant thunder. Each breath feels like drinking color. Here's another fact, wrapped in quiet poetry. The Amazon creates half its own rain. Trees release vapor, which forms clouds, which fall again as rain, a cycle of self-sustaining generosity. The forest literally breathes itself into existence. Scientists call this atmospheric feedback, but standing beneath it, it feels more like devotion. Somewhere nearby, a troop of howler monkeys begins its morning chorus. Their calls roll like thunder deep, resonant, impossible to ignore. A single group can be heard 3 miles away. This is how they claim territory. A kind of forest diplomacy conducted in sound. The air vibrates with their song, and your chest seems to vibrate too. In this vast green cathedral, every species plays a role. Some pollinate, some decompose, some prey, some protect. Nothing is wasted, nothing is redundant. It's a living sermon in balance, a harmony so intricate that even destruction becomes part of renewal. You close your eyes again, the hum of insects becomes a kind of mantra. Your breath slows to match the rhythm of photosynthesis, the slow rising and falling of leaves. In this moment, you are both observer and participant, the dreamer and the dream. And as the morning sun climbs, the forest glows, not with light, but with life. The deeper you wander, the thicker the air becomes, not with smoke or fog, but with scent. It's as if the forest itself is breathing through invisible pores. Crushed leaves, wet bark, a hint of resin, the sharp tang of unseen flowers that open only for the dark. You begin to realize that every breath here is a form of medicine. Scientists estimate that 1/4 of modern pharmaceuticals trace their origins to plants from tropical rainforests. And yet, less than 5% of those plants have ever been studied in detail. Every vine curling around your ankles, every moss growing along a branch could hold an unspoken cure. Somewhere in this endless green, the molecules of tomorrow's medicine are waiting, sleeping in sap, hiding in seed. The forest is a living chemistry lab. Alkaloids, terpenes, phenols, tannins, each plant builds its own arsenal, its own defense. To survive in a world where insects, fungi, and bacteria never rest, evolution turned survival into an art form. Every leaf that resists decay, every bark that heals its own wound, carries within it a blueprint for resilience. The cinchona tree, for instance, once the only known source of quinine, the compound that tamed malaria. Its bark saved millions of lives long before synthetic drugs existed. Further east, in the Peruvian Amazon, scientists discovered a tiny vine called Uncaria tomentosa cat's claw. It showed powerful anti-inflammatory properties once used by local tribes to treat wounds and fever. And the curare vine, whose extract once tipped arrows for hunting a deadly poison, now refined into a muscle relaxant for delicate surgery. Life here is paradox. Venom becomes remedy. Decay becomes growth. Death itself feeds the next heartbeat. And the forest, in its infinite patience, never rushes the exchange. Walk deeper, and the sounds change. The drone of cicadas fades into the rhythmic drip of condensation. Water falls from the canopy like steady rain, even on dry days, the forest's own slow heartbeat. You follow the sound to a clearing where sunlight pierces through the green, scattering gold dust through the mist. In the middle stands a giant tree, its bark streaked with lichen, its roots curling like sleeping snakes. At its base, a small cluster of mushrooms glows faintly blue bioluminescent fungi, converting decay into light. Their glow is caused by luciferase, an enzyme that helps break down organic material while emitting photons. It's an ancient chemistry, older than flowers. To see it now feels like peering into the mind of the planet. When you kneel close, the air smells faintly sweet, earthy, alive, electric. Somewhere beneath the surface, a network of fungal threads stretches for miles, connecting roots and trees in silent conversation. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network. Through it, trees share sugars, send distress signals, even warn each other of danger. To walk here is to walk across a web of whispers. And you think maybe the forest's real medicine is not what we extract, but what we learn. Patience, cooperation, adaptation without conquest. Every living thing here heals something else. And in doing so, it heals itself. A soft wind moves through the clearing, carrying a new scent: vanilla, cinnamon, the faint musk of orchid pollen. Thousands of orchids cling to the trees, their roots dangling like hair, their blossoms catching stray drops of light. Some are so small you could mistake them for dust motes. Others burst in silent symphonies of purple, gold, and ivory. Each flower hides a secret partnership. Most can only be pollinated by a single species of insect. Lose one, and the other fades away. It's the purest kind of trust survival through intimacy. You exhale slowly and imagine what it would be like if humanity listened the same way. If our cities breathed with the same patience. If our inventions mirrored the humility of a fern, uncurling in the dark. The wind shifts again. The glow fades from the fungi. The forest exhales, and you follow its breath onward into the deep green silence that waits beyond. If you could see the forest as it truly is, you would not see trees standing alone. You would see threads, countless, luminous threads running beneath the soil like veins of quiet lightning, each root touching another, each filament carrying faint signals, minerals, sugars, warnings, songs. It is a living internet of wood and breath. Not metaphor, reality. Scientists call it the Wood Wide Web, though the term sounds too mechanical for something so ancient. Here in the Amazon, it stretches farther and denser than anywhere else on Earth. Every handful of soil contains kilometers of fungal hyphae, connecting trees that may stand hundreds of meters apart. Through these threads, Messages travel. When a leaf-eating insect begins to chew on one tree, its neighbors prepare within minutes. They start producing defensive compounds. Information flows silently beneath your feet. No wires, no language, only chemistry and time. It's hard to imagine thought without words, or coordination without will. But this is the forest's intelligence. Slow, collective, without ego. It does not think about survival. It simply is survival. The fungi act as mediators, brokers of information. They trade nutrients for sugar, connect roots that otherwise would never meet, and balance the forest's inner economy. When a tree dies, its stored carbon moves into others. Nothing truly ends. Energy flows, like stories whispered across generations. You kneel, brush your hand across the soil. It feels damp, granular, humming with unseen movement. Somewhere below, ions shift, molecules align, signals pulse. It's a language of electrons, slower than thought, but older than memory. To listen is to feel it more than hear it, a faint vibration under the skin. The Yanomami people, who have lived with this forest for thousands of years, say that trees speak not in words, but in moods. When the forest is at peace, the air feels round, full, breathable. When it suffers from drought, or logging, or imbalance, the air grows sharp. The elders say you can sense it if you sit quietly long enough. Science, slowly, is learning to agree. Recent studies show that plants release ultrasonic clicks when stressed. Others emit volatile organic compounds, invisible scents that carry messages through the wind. Some can even alter the soil's microbial composition to warn others nearby. The forest doesn't just exist, it communicates. Its silence is only apparent. Look up, the canopy sways gently, leaves turning their undersides toward the humid air. Photosynthesis slows as clouds gather. The first drops fall, each one striking a leaf, a root, a stream. And with every drop, ions move, charges shift, an electrical storm traveling through millions of living bodies. It's not random, it's rhythm. When lightning finally cracks across the sky, it's almost ceremonial, as if the heavens are joining the conversation below. The bolt splits the darkness, striking a tall ceiba tree. For a moment, everything glows light, heat, life. The tree smolders but does not die. Its bark, thick and fibrous, insulates its core. Days later, sprouts will rise from the scar, feeding on the minerals released by fire. Even destruction is turned into nourishment. This is how the forest endures, not through strength, but through exchange. No voice here demands dominance. Every life listens, adapts, contributes, yields. Each breath is an act of cooperation. Now, as night folds in again, the soundscape deepens. Frogs trill in 1,000 tones. Insects buzz with mechanical precision. Wings rustle in the dark. Beneath it all, the ground pulses faintly, not metaphorically, but literally. Scientists measuring soil conductivity have found electrical fluctuations synchronized with temperature, humidity, and even moonlight. The earth itself hums, and the forest listens. You lie back against a root, eyes half closed, and for a moment you can almost hear it. A low, thrumming resonance, deeper than any heartbeat. It's not a sound, more a presence, a feeling, the kind that makes you forget where you end and the world begins. Perhaps this is what connection truly means. Not talking, not naming, just being tuned to something older, slower, and infinitely patient. A warm wind slides through the leaves, carrying the scent of damp wood and orchids. The rain eases, and moonlight returns, fractured through mist. Somewhere nearby, a capybara shifts in the undergrowth. The air settles, the whispering stops, and you realize that silence, too, is part of the conversation. When the sun folds itself into the river, the forest does not rest. It merely changes language. What was light becomes vibration. What was color becomes scent. In this world without sun, everything glows from within. The first sound is the whistle of tree frogs, small as a thumb, each calling for a mate with mathematical precision. The notes rise and fall like water ripples, never colliding, each species tuned to its own narrow frequency. This is the forest's nighttime symphony, an acoustic map of identity. Biologists once compared these overlapping frequencies to the channels of a radio, each frog broadcasting on its own wavelength to be heard. Above them, moths flutter like drifting ash, their wings dusted with microscopic scales that shimmer under moonlight. Some feed on tears, literally drinking the salt from sleeping birds and mammals. Others mimic the colors of bark and fungus, disguising themselves so perfectly that only movement gives them away. Every adaptation here is poetry written in DNA. Deeper in the shadows, the forest begins to glow. Tiny beetles light up the leaf litter, their abdomens pulsing green and gold. Fungi trace pale halos across fallen logs, like the embers of a dream. Even some millipedes shimmer faintly, a warning to predators that they carry chemical defenses. To walk here is to walk through a galaxy turned upside down, the stars below your feet instead of above. Bioluminescence is not magic, though it feels that way. It's a chemical conversation. Luciferin reacting with oxygen in the presence of luciferase, a tiny spark of metabolism released as light. Each glow has purpose to attract mates, lure prey, or signal danger. But for the sleepless wanderer, it feels like the forest breathing visible sighs. You pause beside a pool, where moonlight collects between roots. A pair of eyes gleam just above the surface, not glass, not reflection, but life. A caiman, perfectly still. It has been there for hours, maybe days, waiting. Patience is its religion. Only when a ripple crosses its domain does it move, silent as thought. Nearby, an anaconda slides into the water, muscles rippling beneath its patterned skin. At night, it hunts by heat, not sight, sensing warm blood through special pits along its jaw. To it, the world is not seen, but felt. Infrared, vibration, water pressure, an entire universe beyond human perception. And as it disappears beneath the dark surface, the river closes behind it without a sound. The night deepens. Mist curls low, wrapping around trunks and roots like slow smoke. Somewhere in the canopy, a night monkey calls soft, questioning. Its pupils expand wide, catching every flicker of light. It leaps silently from branch to branch, tail counterbalancing its gentle flight. Each motion seems choreographed by gravity itself. Not all eyes here belong to predators. Some simply watch curious, cautious, alive. Spiders with mirror-like faces glint in the beam of the moon. Bats unfold and vanish again into the black, chasing clouds of insects that rise like invisible tides. And under the soil, worms and beetles till the earth, turning death into life. The night belongs to them as much as to anything that walks above. You sit on a fallen log and listen. The forest's pulse is slower now, more deliberate. Even the wind seems to whisper in half-sentences. Your heartbeat begins to sync with the rhythm, a soft, steady loop of inhale and exhale. In that moment, you realize that this night is not separate from your own body. It is mirrored within you, each breath echoing the respiration of trees, each heartbeat aligned with the endless pulse of rain. Somewhere distant, thunder rolls. Lightning flickers, but does not strike. For an instant, the canopy lights up a million wet leaves, catching silver fire, then fades again into black. Rain follows, slow at first, then steady. The forest sighs as it drinks, water striking leaves with a delicate percussion. Every drop a heartbeat, every ripple a whisper. You close your eyes. The air tastes of petrichor and life. You can feel the temperature fall, the humidity rise, the soil cooling beneath your feet. The rainforest, even in darkness, continues its quiet labor, exchanging gases, growing cells, building the chemistry of dawn. Nothing sleeps entirely here. Even rest is a form of creation. A last chorus of frogs begins again, overlapping, insistent, hypnotic. The rhythm folds over itself until you can no longer tell where the sound ends and your breath begins. And as you drift at the edge of waking and dreaming, one thought lingers. The night of the Amazon is not absence. It is the forest's second consciousness, the dream the earth dreams of itself. Dawn does not arrive suddenly here. It seeps slow, patient, tender. A pale mist rises from the forest floor, as if the earth itself were exhaling sleep. Light, filtered through endless layers of leaves, drips rather than shines. Each droplet of brightness finds its way down, touching a fern, a moss, a fallen petal. In this slow awakening, the forest's builders emerge, not the giants that tower above, but the tiny ones that move unseen. In the Amazon, the smallest are often the most powerful. Insects form the machinery that keeps the entire ecosystem alive. There are more species of beetles here than in all of Europe combined. Ants alone make up nearly 1/3 of the total animal biomass. It's not hyperbole if you were to weigh all the mammals, birds, and reptiles in this forest. The ants would still outweigh them all. Watch the leafcutters. They march in endless procession, carrying green banners above their heads. Each ant carries a fragment many times its own size, yet never falters. To a casual observer, they seem to be feeding on leaves, but they are farmers, cultivating a hidden fungus beneath the soil. The leaves are not for eating, but for feeding this fungus, which in turn feeds the colony. The relationship has lasted for over 50 million years, a quiet civilization humming just beneath your feet. Nearby, termites build cathedrals from mud and saliva, structures so well ventilated they maintain perfect temperature day and night. These mounds are living lungs, breathing, adjusting, self-regulating. Their architecture rivals that of any human engineer, yet their builders have no blueprints, no overseers, only instinct, honed by time. If you kneel and touch the earth, you can feel warmth rising from below the heat of decomposition. This is the true engine of the forest: rot. Every fallen leaf, every broken branch, every drop of waste is transformed by bacteria and fungi into new soil. Death here is not an ending, but a reorganization of elements. Carbon becomes air, minerals become sap, matter becomes memory. Scientists studying decomposition in the Amazon found that some fungi release enzymes that can break down even the toughest plant polymers in hours. Others dissolve rock, extracting nutrients that trees cannot reach on their own. Through this unseen labor, the forest remains fertile, in a place where the soil, paradoxically, is poor. It survives not by what it has, but by what it recycles. Look closer at a patch of moss. Tiny mites crawl between the filaments, feeding on spores. Springtails leap like living dust motes. A spider smaller than a raindrop spins a web no thicker than breath. You could spend a lifetime here and never see the same pattern twice. And yet, it all functions flawlessly, endlessly, as if time itself were one vast, self-correcting circuit. The Amazon doesn't measure time in years or seasons, but in cycles. There is no true spring or autumn here, only the slow oscillation between rain and less rain. Yet within those rhythms, life keeps perfect time. Flowers bloom when their pollinators hatch. Fruits ripen when the rivers swell. Even the birds that migrate across continents return to these trees within days of the same date each year, guided by cues we still barely understand. You look up, and sunlight now filters through the upper canopy in broken beams. Each shaft of light catches dust, pollen, spores, the invisible snow of the tropics. These drifting particles feed the sky itself, rising into clouds that will travel hundreds of miles before raining again. Dust from the Sahara Desert, thousands of kilometers away, drifts across the Atlantic to fertilize this forest, carrying phosphorus from long-dead marine life. Even deserts and rainforests are connected by invisible breath. In this network of exchange, time feels circular, not linear. Each moment folds back into another. Nothing truly leaves. Everything becomes something else. A fallen leaf feeds a root that grows into a tree that feeds a butterfly that carries pollen that becomes another leaf. And so on, forever, until even decay feels like devotion. You breathe in deeply and realize that you are part of this circuit too. The air in your lungs was once part of a leaf, perhaps fallen just here, decades ago. Atoms from the bones of ancient fish swirl now in your blood. There is no separation between you and the forest, only rhythm, continuity, and return. Above, the morning chorus begins again. A toucan calls a sound like laughter, echoing through green valleys. A troop of squirrel monkeys leaps through the branches, tails curling like punctuation marks in the air. And somewhere far away, thunder murmurs the promise of another cycle, another rain, another renewal. You exhale slowly. The light around you softens. You can almost feel time slowing to the heartbeat of the earth. And in that stillness you understand. The true architects of the Amazon are not the tallest trees nor the fiercest predators, but the smallest hands, the ones that build, rebuild, and never stop breathing life into silence. From the ground, the Amazon seems endless, an ocean of green. But from above, it is something stranger, a sea that breathes. Every leaf, every root, every droplet of sap exhales vapor into the air, rising in slow spirals that shimmer under sunlight. Those spirals merge into columns, the columns into clouds, and the clouds drift like rivers across the sky. Scientists call them atmospheric rivers, invisible streams of moisture that carry more water than the Amazon River itself. They move thousands of kilometers, shaping storms, feeding rainfall across the Andes, and even watering fields as far away as Argentina. A single mature tree can release up to 1,000 liters of water into the air each day. Multiply that by hundreds of billions of trees, and you have a sky that rains itself into being. The forest, quite literally, makes its own weather. When deforestation breaks the continuity of trees, these aerial rivers weaken. The rain becomes erratic, the clouds thin, and the rhythm falters. What was once a pulse becomes a gasp. And so scientists now say, the Amazon is not just affected by climate, it is climate. It is both the lungs and the heartbeat of the planet. High above the canopy, where the heat shimmers and the air thins, vultures and macaws ride the thermals. Their wings cut across invisible streams of moisture, tracing the movement of the air like living compasses. At night, satellites capture patterns of vapor, swirling in spirals that mirror galaxies fractal, self-repeating, timeless. It's easy to forget you're looking at weather, not life. But perhaps the two are not so different. The Yanomami elders speak of Exapiri, the sky spirits, who dance with the breath of trees. When the forest thrives, they say, the air hums with balance. When it suffers, the sky spirits become restless. Storms arrive uninvited. Winds lose direction. To the modern ear, this sounds like myth. But to scientists studying atmospheric feedbacks, it's eerily precise. Cut enough trees, and rain retreats. Restore them, and the air cools. The clouds return, and the song resumes. You look up now, the sky is no longer a blank. It moves, ripples, sighs. You can almost see the flow. Vast currents of vapor, arching like translucent rivers between continents. Moisture from this forest may one day fall as rain over the African savannas, or drift as mist into the Antarctic cold. The earth breathes in loops, not lines. There's a moment in the afternoon when sunlight hits the vapor just right, creating columns of brightness that pierce the canopy like pillars of glass. Photons bounce between droplets, scattering into halos. Butterflies rise through them, their wings refracting gold and violet. It looks like prayer given physical form, the forest offering light back to the sky. Scientists have found that these vapor flows do more than carry water, they also transport microscopic life. Bacteria, spores, even fragments of pollen rise with the moisture and travel the world. Some of them help seed clouds. Others fall again as rain halfway across the planet. It means that a storm in Europe might be born from a spore that once drifted over this river valley. The forest's breath is global. Even more astonishing, the Amazon regulates its own temperature through this cycle. When sunlight hits the leaves, water evaporates and cools the air, a kind of planetary air conditioning powered by photosynthesis. Without it, the surface would bake, rivers would shrink, and clouds would fade. With it, balance holds. For now, you close your eyes and imagine it, the unseen river flowing above you, each droplet a messenger, carrying the forest's story across the world. Rain begins to fall, soft and slow. The drops are warm, like breath. They land on your skin, and for an instant, you can't tell if it's sweat, mist, or the forest itself reaching out to touch you. The scent of petrichor returns earthy, electric. Each drop striking leaf and soil sounds like the soft percussion of a heartbeat. Somewhere distant, thunder murmurs not as anger but as pulse. And as you stand beneath that breathing sky, you understand that the boundary between land and air, between earth and body, is an illusion. You are standing inside the planet's lungs. You are part of its breath. Light here behaves differently. It doesn't simply fall, it seeps, refracts, multiplies. The canopy filters it into 1,000 shades of green, so dense that the human eye begins to lose distinction. After a few hours, you no longer see leaves. You see wavelengths, a living spectrum breathing around you. The human retina perceives only a narrow slice of reality: red, green, blue. But the Amazon's inhabitants see far beyond. Butterflies here can perceive ultraviolet patterns invisible to you, using them to find flowers that bloom only once a day. Bees navigate by polarized light, reading the sky even through clouds. Some snakes sense infrared, detecting the body heat of prey in total darkness. Electric fish, gliding through murky water, map their surroundings using pulses of current, a kind of liquid radar. Every creature carries its own version of truth. You kneel by a pool where sunlight scatters across floating leaves. Tiny fish shimmer below, each scale catching light like a fragment of glass. They aren't showing off, they're communicating. To them, color is language, a way to signal readiness, dominance, fear. When the light fades, their colors fade too, as if the message has been delivered and the conversation done. The morpho butterfly drifts past brilliant blue, almost unreal. But that blue doesn't come from pigment. It's structural color, formed by microscopic ridges on the scales of its wings. Each ridge bends light in a specific way, amplifying some wavelengths, canceling others. Under a microscope, you'd see architecture, not dye. It's pure physics dressed as magic. If you hold one wing at the right angle, the blue vanishes into dull brown, proof that beauty is an interaction, not a possession. Farther ahead, a bird of paradise plant opens its orange beak-like flower. Its shape is not random. It's designed to fit a hummingbird's beak precisely. The colors and geometry evolve together, locked in an ancient partnership. Science calls this coevolution. You might call it intimacy made visible. At ground level, color changes with depth. The deeper you go, the more the world turns to shadow greens, swallowed by darkness, replaced by faint pulses of bioluminescence. A beetle glows from beneath a fallen log. Fungi trace soft neon lines through the rot. Even in decay, there is design. Color is never wasted here. It always has purpose. There's a plant called Heliconia rostrata, its crimson bracts hanging like tongues of flame. Inside them, tiny pools of water collect, forming miniature habitats where frogs lay eggs. The color attracts pollinators from afar, while the structure shelters new life. Form and function become the same gesture beauty as survival. But the most astonishing colors are the ones you can't see. Leaves reflect infrared light to stay cool. Flowers emit ultraviolet signals to attract bees. Some plants even release invisible chemical colors, scents that function as coded messages. One tree might release a perfume that says, "I am ready to bloom." Another releases a warning that says, "I am under attack." To walk through this forest is to be surrounded by a spectrum beyond human reach. Scientists studying the Amazon's light spectrum once described it as a living kaleidoscope of information. Every wavelength corresponds to a message: growth, defense, hunger, reproduction. You stand still, and for a moment, it feels like the forest is speaking in frequencies instead of words. Every shimmer, every flicker, every faint hue becomes a syllable in a language older than time. you close your eyes, and light continues behind your eyelids, a soft glow that pulses with your heartbeat. Even in darkness, the impression of green remains, like an afterimage imprinted on your mind. Perhaps that's what the forest does. It doesn't just show itself, it writes itself into you. A breeze moves through the canopy, scattering beams of light like spilled water. A parrot calls in, bursts of color, its feathers flashing in rhythm with its voice. The air thickens with pollen, dust, and scent. It's as though the entire forest is painting itself anew, every second, with every breath. And you realize something simple but immense. The Amazon is not beautiful for you. It is beautiful because beauty here has function. Color is survival. Light is language. And seeing, truly seeing, means learning to listen with more than eyes. You inhale again. Warm, damp air fills your lungs, carrying molecules of chlorophyll and rain. For a moment, you are part of the visible spectrum, one more reflection in the forest's endless play of light. Then, gently, it fades. The greens soften. Shadows rise again. And the forest returns to whispering in wavelengths only it can hear. In daylight, the forest hums with the rhythm of breath and light. But if you could listen below that, beneath the hiss of rain and the flutter of wings, you'd hear something slower, the quiet murmur of memory. Each organism here learns in its own way. A bird finds its route by the taste of wind, a jaguar by the echo of its own paw steps, a tree by the tilt of the sun. Even a vine seems to remember. When researchers placed poles beside a climbing tendril, it reached toward the one it had touched the day before, ignoring the new one. Its memory lasted weeks. No nerves, no brain, only chemistry and persistence. Yet it remembered. In the Amazon, this kind of knowing is everywhere. Bees navigate through a maze of flowers and return home by smell alone. Electric eels recognize one another's pulses like fingerprints. Macaws memorize hundreds of fruiting trees scattered across kilometers of jungle. To survive here is to think with your whole body. And perhaps the forest itself thinks too, not in thoughts, but in responses. When one tree is wounded, another shifts its metabolism. When rain grows scarce, roots deepen across entire valleys. When fire passes through, seeds that have waited for decades suddenly awaken. It's not intelligence as humans define it. It's intelligence as nature embodies it, distributed, collective, unhurried. Scientists studying the network of roots and fungi have found patterns of signaling eerily similar to neural activity. Electrical pulses travel at measurable speeds, sometimes accelerating when the environment changes. In the dark soil, it resembles a slow brain dreaming in green. And maybe that's exactly what it is, not a mind that thinks, but one that remembers itself alive. Look closer at the animals who walk these paths. The giant river otter, sleek and curious, calls out in distinct pitches to family members' vocal names passed down through generations. Capuchin monkeys use specific stones to crack nuts, preferring some tools over others as if guided by taste or style. And the harpy eagle, one of the largest on Earth, builds its nest from branches chosen with almost ceremonial care, returning to the same tree year after year. These are not instincts alone. They are acts of continuity thought, shaped by memory, by place, by belonging. Somewhere deep in the understory, a parasitic fig sends roots into a host tree. Over decades, it thickens, wrapping its host until the original trunk dies away. The strangler fig stands hollow, an echo of what it consumed. Yet in that hollow, bats roost, moss grows, orchids bloom. What seems cruel becomes creation again. Even this cycle feels deliberate, almost moral, as if the forest knows that death must be useful. There is a quiet intelligence even in decay. Researchers found that fallen logs emit specific gases as they decompose, attracting beetles that will lay eggs and begin the next transformation. Each molecule released is a signal, an invitation. Rot itself is a kind of conversation. You walk through the twilight and begin to sense that this intelligence doesn't belong to individuals at all. It belongs to relationships. Nothing here exists alone, so nothing here thinks alone. The frog's song depends on the humidity the trees provide. The trees depend on the rain carried by the frog's breath. Every life completes another. The forest thinks in circles, not lines. Above, a troop of spider monkeys drifts through the canopy, their tails curling and uncurling like question marks. One pauses, gazes down at you. Its eyes, dark and calm, reflect your outline, an image held for just a second before it vanishes into shadow. Perhaps it wonders, in its own quiet logic, what kind of animal stands still and listens. Perhaps it knows you are not separate at all. Night begins to edge back in. Fireflies rise, as if neurons firing in slow motion. Their pulses echo across the trees. One lights, another answers, then another. No single insect controls it, yet somehow they synchronize. A collective mind stitched together by light. You sit beneath a kapok tree and feel its roots pressing under the earth like veins. Somewhere inside that vast body, water moves, sugars flow, signals pass. If a forest can think, this must be how, not by will, but by circulation, thought as motion, wisdom as flow. The air thickens. You exhale, and your breath becomes mist. It rises and mingles with the vapor above, and for a fleeting moment, you imagine that the forest absorbs it, folds it into its memory, keeps it. So that long after you leave, a part of you remains here, dissolved into the slow intelligence of trees. And as your eyelids grow heavy, you hear a single phrase, though no one speaks it. The forest remembers everything that breathes. The Amazon does not wake to music. It is music. Every moment, trillions of vibrations weave through air, leaf, and water. To the untrained ear, it is chaos. To the forest, it is perfect order. Sound here has layers. The top canopy sings in high frequencies, birds, insects, wind cutting through giant leaves. The middle forest hums in midtones, frogs, primates, dripping rain. The floor murmurs in bass footsteps, streams, the slow crumble of wood. Together they form a continuous orchestra that never stops, only shifts tempo. Biologists studying these waves call it the acoustic niche hypothesis. Each species claims a tiny band of frequencies so its voice can be heard. It's evolutionary cooperation rendered as music. Where a frog croaks at 2 kilohertz, a bird may sing at 3, an insect buzz at 4. A living equalizer, tuned by survival. Close your eyes. You can feel it in your bones. Low notes of thunder far off, the metallic crackle of cicadas, the sigh of wind moving through vines. No human composer could layer so many instruments without collapse. Yet here it works, because no one performs for applause. They simply express the need to exist. Silence, too, has its place. When predators move, the forest hushes in waves. First, the birds fall quiet, then the frogs, then even the insects still. For a few heartbeats, the air thickens a pause dense enough to touch. It's not emptiness, it's awareness. Every creature listening at once. Researchers recording these moments found that silence carries more information than noise. It reveals presence by absence, the unseen shape of a jaguar, the roll of a storm still below the horizon. Silence is the forest thinking out loud. When rain arrives, sound becomes texture. Drops strike leaves in polyphonic rhythm. Wide leaves boom, narrow ones whisper. Moss absorbs. Somewhere, water gathers into a trickle, then a rush, then again a hush. Each droplet finds its instrument. To the indigenous peoples who have lived here since time began, sound is sacred cartography. They navigate by ear, not compass. Each valley, each bend of river has its own timbre. A hollow trunk becomes drum, a shell becomes flute, a bird call becomes calendar. Their songs imitate the forest's voice, not to control it, but to stay within its harmony. Underneath the audible, another layer hums. Scientists have recorded infrasound vibrations below human hearing, generated by trees swaying, by thunder rolling through roots, by ocean tides tugging the land itself. These waves travel hundreds of kilometers, binding the forest into a single resonant body. It's as if the planet has a heartbeat too slow for us to notice. You lie back, and your own pulse syncs with it. Breath becomes rhythm, body becomes instrument. For the first time, you understand what it means to listen with the skin. In this deep awareness, the difference between music and life disappears. A drop of water striking a leaf is percussion. A bird's cry is melody. The hush after lightning is rest. And somewhere between them all is you. A single, quiet note in the longest song ever written. If sound is the forest's language, pattern is its logic. Everywhere you look, order hides inside wildness. Curves that echo each other, spirals repeating, symmetry nested inside chaos. It's not design in the human sense. It's the shape life takes when it's allowed to dream. A single fern leaf holds the blueprint of a galaxy. Each frond splits into smaller fronds. Each smaller frond mirrors the whole. Scientists call this self-similarity, fractal geometry that governs not only plants, but river deltas, lightning bolts, even our lungs. The same equation repeats, scaled by life. From above, the Amazon River looks like a silver snake, but trace its course, and you'll find it obeys the same branching logic as veins, roots, or neural paths in a brain. Water follows the principle of least resistance. The same law, electricity follows through wire. The same path blood finds through muscle. Across scales, the pattern persists. Flow seeks grace. Leaves arrange themselves by an ancient code, a sequence hidden in petals and pine cones, known to mathematicians as the Fibonacci spiral. The angle between leaves maximizes sunlight and rain, and so efficiency becomes beauty. A palm unfurling in dawn light is a proof of physics written in chlorophyll. Even decay keeps symmetry. Fungi spread in radial circles, their growth limited only by food and time. As they consume matter, new rings appear, each a record of conditions past. Humidity, heat, the chemistry of death turned into data. To read the forest is to read these equations written on the body of Earth. Butterfly wings follow bilateral symmetry so perfect that geneticists study their color borders to understand mutation. But symmetry is not absolute. One wing always holds a microscopic flaw. That imperfection prevents structural collapse. Proof that imbalance is part of balance. The indigenous carvers of the Western Amazon know this intuitively. Their patterned spirals, zigzags, mirrored shapes represent rivers, roots, snake tracks, the flow of energy. They say the designs come from the forest itself, seen in visions during song and ritual. To carve a perfect line, one must first listen to the sound of the pattern beneath the bark. Scientists studying pattern formation in slime molds found something astonishing. When placed in a maze, the mold found the shortest route between food sources, replicating an algorithm used in modern computing. The forest's intelligence once again proving itself mathematical. It does not count, it calculates by living. Even light follows form. Sunbeams, filtering through leaves, scatter into soft grids called leaf venation shadows, a natural lattice that changes through the day, mapping both time and temperature. If you could record it, you'd have the forest's sundial written in photons. You pause beside a patch of bromeliads collecting rain. Their arrangement on the tree trunk is a Fibonacci spiral, but not rigid, each one slightly offset, adjusted by wind and chance. Perfection here is flexible. Geometry breathes. The formula bends just enough to let life happen. In the stillness, you begin to sense how everything fits. The spiral of a fern echoes the spiral of a storm. The pulse of your heart mirrors the current of the river. Your breath traces the rhythm of photosynthesis. Order is not imposed from above. It grows from within. The rain returns, soft as fingertips. Ripples spread across puddles, intersecting in circles within circles. Fractals, again endlessly folding, endlessly self-correcting. You watch until the reflections blur and realize that pattern isn't something the forest wears. It's something it is. A flash of blue, a morpho butterfly, cuts across the dim air, its wings beating in time with the rain. It vanishes, leaving only turbulence behind, and you think, even chaos leaves geometry in its wake. As twilight deepens, fireflies rise, their lights flickering in repeating intervals. If you plotted their pulses, you'd find a rhythm so precise that engineers study it to design self-synchronizing systems. Nature, as always, did it first. You close your eyes. Inside your mind, you can still see the spirals, the symmetry, the equations written in shadow and sound. And as sleep begins to edge closer, you understand that the forest's design is not perfection, but participation, the math of belonging. Time in the Amazon is not the ticking of clocks. It is the sound of dripping water, the slow widening of a river bend, the soft disintegration of a fallen leaf. Here, change is constant but never hurried. Everything moves, but nothing seems to move. You can feel it in the soil, warm, damp, alive. This ground has been recycled 1,000 times. Every molecule of nitrogen, every grain of phosphorus, once belonged to something else. A fern, a fish, a feather, a dream. The forest's calendar is written not in years, but in layers of matter becoming matter again. Seeds wait for decades before waking. Some lie buried under centuries of humus, dormant until a shaft of light breaks the canopy above them. Then, suddenly, they remember what they are. Roots plunge downward, leaves uncurl upward, and another chapter begins in the slow novel of growth. There's a species of palm whose fruit ripens only once every 7 years. Another tree flowers just twice in a lifetime. Time here does not repeat, it accumulates. Each cycle carries traces of all that came before, like rings in a trunk, like echoes in water. To scientists, these rhythms are data growth rates, rainfall, decomposition. To the people who live here, they are relationships. They know the age of a tree by the birds that nest in it, the age of a river by the fish that return. They measure patience in fruiting seasons and loss in the silence after rain. The forest holds fossils of its own memory, seeds hardened to stone, leaves pressed into clay. In some layers, you find charcoal, the signature of ancient fires long tamed by human hands. Even the soil remembers us. Above you, the great rivers keep time differently. They carve and uncarve the land, braiding and unbraiding their channels, building islands out of silt and unbuilding them again. A single storm upstream can rearrange a landscape downstream. If you could watch from the sky for 1,000 years, the forest would appear to breathe, expanding, contracting, folding itself in motion. There is no past or future here, only continuity. A tree falls, a vine seizes the opening. Light floods in, insects swarm, life rushes to fill the gap. Death is simply a handoff in the relay of energy. The forest never mourns, it recycles. Researchers studying nutrient flow once marked isotopes in leaves and traced them through roots, fungi, insects, predators, rain. Within months, the same atoms reappeared in new growth miles away. Time, in the Amazon, is not linear, it is circular, a loop of matter spiraling endlessly through living forms. You reach a clearing where an ancient ceiba stands alone. Its roots stretch like frozen rivers. It has seen empires rise and vanish, yet it still exhales oxygen into the dawn. To stand beside it is to feel years collapse. You sense your pulse slowing to its pace, your mind quieting to its patience. The ceiba knows what you are only beginning to learn. Time is not passing, it is pooling around you. A sloth moves overhead, its fur dripping rain, its expression eternal calm. It may spend a lifetime in the same few trees, eating, sleeping, breathing slowly enough to grow algae on its coat. It does not waste time, it becomes time. The rain returns, light at first, then steady as heartbeat. Each drop lands in a puddle that already remembers countless others. You close your eyes and let it touch your skin. The water falling on you now may have evaporated from these same trees 100 years ago, traveled the sky, returned home. You are part of the same circulation. You are not moving through the forest. It is moving through you. And as the air thickens and thunder hums far away, you realize that time in this place is not measured by loss, but by persistence, by the miracle of what refuses to stop growing. The forest has never been empty. Long before maps, before names like Amazon, people walked these paths, listening, learning, becoming part of its breath. Their villages rose and vanished like tides, their stories folded into the leaves. What they left behind is not ruin but memory. A civilization woven so perfectly into nature that for centuries outsiders thought it had never been here at all. Archaeologists have begun to uncover the traces, geoglyphs carved into the earth, vast patterns visible only from above, circles, spirals, rectangles aligned to the solstice sun. They were built by hands that understood both soil and star. Nearby, shards of pottery surface after rain, decorated with spirals that echo the river's bends. This was not wilderness. It was a garden on the scale of continents. The people of the green world, as some call them now, knew how to shape without scarring. They built terra preta black earth, soil enriched with charcoal, bone, and plant ash. Unlike most tropical soil, it grows richer with age. Even after centuries, crops still thrive there. Modern chemists have yet to reproduce its alchemy. They created fertility out of memory. They left no waste, only abundance. They planted forests rather than fields. Every fruit, every nut, every spice that humans love, cacao, Brazil nut, guava, acai, once grew along their invisible orchards. Their maps were the flight of parrots, their calendars the blooming of trees. To harvest was to sing, to cut was to ask permission. Every act of living required a conversation with the land. The forest remembers them in language. Words from hundreds of indigenous tongues still echo in river names. Negro, Solimois, Xingu, Tapajos. Each carries a meaning tied to the flow of water, the color of soil, the taste of fish. To speak these words is to invoke the way rivers once spoke to people. They hunted, yes, but gently. Poisoned darts made from curare, harvested vine by vine, used sparingly, respectfully. Each animal taken was thanked with prayer and smoke. Death was not conquest, it was exchange. The elders say the forest has moods. When harmony holds, it hums softly, a round, full sound in the air. When imbalance enters too much taking, too little giving, the forest sighs, and even the wind feels thin. You can sense it if you sit quietly enough. It is the same sensitivity the hunter learns, the same stillness that lets a healer find the right leaf in a maze of green. Healers, shamans, botanists, before the word existed, they memorized thousands of plants. A vine for fever, a flower for snakebite, a resin for grief. Their knowledge was not written but sung, each cure remembered as rhythm, melody, story. They called some plants teachers, spirits that could lend vision, that showed how the world connects beneath the surface. Modern medicine is only beginning to rediscover what they always knew, that healing is relationship, not extraction. Under the moon, their fires once glowed between trunks, small circles of warmth surrounded by endless green. Voices rose stories of creation, of animals that became people, of rivers born from tears. Children listened, eyes wide, while insects hummed their background lullaby. Those stories weren't myths, they were instructions for how to live without breaking the world that feeds you. Today, descendants of those first keepers still walk these rivers. Some carry smartphones and paddles, others carry spears and songs. They face machines, fires, roads, yet their languages still hold the names of every bird and fruit. They are not relics of the past. They are the present tense of survival. You look around and imagine what it felt like to live in perfect reciprocity with this place. No fences, no ownership, only belonging mutual, continuous, unquestioned. You realize the forest is not ancient alone. It is constantly reborn through those who remember how to listen. A light drizzle falls, perhaps approval, perhaps memory made liquid. Smoke rises from a distant fire, and you swear the forest sighs again, this time with relief. You breathe in. The scent is wood, earth, human, rain. It smells like history that never hardened into ruin. It smells alive. By midday, the heat thickens until even light feels heavy. Air trembles above the canopy. Sap boils inside trunks. Somewhere beyond the horizon, smoke begins to rise. A slow gray ribbon twisting into the blue. Fire has always existed here. Lightning strikes in the dry months, clearing small spaces, letting new growth breathe. The forest knows how to heal from that kind of flame. It sheds, regrows, remembers. But the new fires are different, too wide, too hungry, lit not by storm, but by human impatience. Planes drop sparks across logged clearings, and wind carries the embers into standing trees. The flames run through the understory, like whispers turned wild, consuming the litter that once fed roots. Animals flee toward rivers. Some don't reach them. Smoke dims the sun, and the sky turns the color of rust. Scientists call this tipping point. When too much canopy is lost, the air dries, and the self-made rain no longer returns. A rainforest becomes savanna. A heartbeat becomes a cough. You stand at the edge of a burned patch, black trunks rising like charcoal sculptures, ash soft beneath your feet. Yet even here, life refuses silence. Tiny shoots push through the soot, bright green against gray. A beetle lands on your hand, metallic as copper. The forest begins again before the smoke has even cleared. Some trees hold secrets for such moments. Their seeds lie sealed in hard shells that only heat can open. Flame to them is not death, but invitation. They bloom from ruin. Evolution learned to turn disaster into doorways. And people, too, have begun to learn. Farmers who once burned now plant corridors of native trees to shade their crops, to call back the rain. Biologists build nurseries from fallen branches, raising seedlings under sheets of recycled plastic. In some valleys, drones scatter seed balls over the scars. From the air, it looks like a second storm, this one made of hope. Still, the struggle is vast. Each minute, an area of forest disappears larger than a football field. The math feels cruel, the effort small. But the Amazon has always been patient with those who return to it. Give it soil, water, and time, and it will rewrite itself. It has done so for 60 million years. Rain begins again, sudden, relentless. The scent of wet ash turns sweet. Steam rises from blackened trunks. You can almost hear them sigh. Frogs call from puddles that didn't exist an hour ago. Winged ants emerge, taking flight into the silver air. Rebirth in real time. You kneel and press your palm to the ground. It's still warm. Beneath that warmth, roots are already searching outward. You whisper a small apology, though you don't know to whom. To the trees, the soil, the sky, or perhaps to time itself. A breeze arrives from the east, carrying the smell of wet leaves, and you realize it's the forest answering back. Keep breathing. I'm not finished yet. Rain still falls when morning comes. It falls in thin threads at first, then thick sheets that drum against every leaf and stone. What burned yesterday now gleams as if polished. The ash dissolves into rivulets, and a green haze begins to lift from the soil. In the Amazon, healing does not wait for permission. Here, survival is not defiance, it is adaptation perfected. The forest doesn't rebuild by repeating itself. It reinvents with every storm. Roots move first. They push through the loosened ground, sensing minerals newly freed by fire. Microbes wake within minutes, multiplying in the warmth, rebuilding the chemistry of fertility. Spores drift from the air, settle, germinate. They will weave a new network before the next moon. Resilience begins where sight ends. Insects return next. They come in clouds, beetles, flies, winged ants. The architects of decomposition, their bodies break down what the flames left behind, turning death into fuel. A single dung beetle can bury its own weight in soil every night. Thousands together can replant a field without touching a seed. Seeds, though, are already waiting. Some ride the wind from unburned edges. Others drop from birds passing overhead. Monkeys fling them without intention, and rivers carry them quietly in their floodwater. Wherever they land, life takes root. Sometimes it takes a year, sometimes a decade, but the forest always finds its way home. Certain trees migrate. They inch across valleys over generations, their seeds sprouting where conditions shift. Botanists have tracked these green movements with satellites. A slow, deliberate march toward wetter ground, cooler shade. It is the forest rearranging itself to survive a changing planet. Patience as evolution's weapon. Animals adapt too. Capybaras now graze where dense woods once stood, turning open scars into meadows. Birds learn new routes. Amphibians find refuge in drainage ditches. Some species hybridize, borrowing genes from neighbors to face new climates and diseases. Life here is not fragile, it's flexible. It bends but rarely breaks. You pause beside a stream swollen from last night's rain. The water is brown with silt, glittering with fragments of charcoal. Fish dart through it anyway, their silver bodies flashing like mercury. A heron stands motionless in the shallows, one eye fixed on the surface. When it strikes, the splash sounds like punctuation, life asserting itself in the sentence of recovery. Further inland, young trees form mosaics where giants once stood. Pioneer species Cecropia, Inga, Heliocarpus grow fastest. Their leaves are broad, their roots shallow, their mission simple: shade the ground, call the rain. Within their canopy, slower species germinate, hardwoods that will outlive centuries. Succession is choreography, speed leading to endurance, haste giving way to grace. Even the scars of machinery fade. Tracks left by trucks filled with water become breeding pools for frogs. Oil-slicked puddles shimmer, then vanish beneath moss. Given time, even wounds can photosynthesize. Scientists measuring recovery after fire found that biodiversity rebounds sooner than expected when fragments of forest remain nearby. Each surviving patch acts as a seed of memory, a living archive that teaches the land what to become again. Resilience, it turns out, is contagious. You tilt your face to the rain and taste minerals, ash turned back into salt and life. The air hums softly with new insects, and from somewhere deep inside the mist comes a low growl. The jaguar has returned. Predator and prey, cycle and countercycle, the orchestra tuning itself once more. The forest doesn't seek perfection. It seeks continuation, even broken. It never stops composing. You whisper to no one, "I understand," because now you do. Survival is not a miracle. It is the natural state of everything that loves being alive. At first light, the air is silver. Mist clings to the branches, and every droplet seems to hold a reflection of the sun that has not yet risen. You climb slowly, hand over hand, up the giant trunk of a ceiba that has watched this cycle longer than memory. The bark smells faintly of rain and dust. Halfway up, the world begins to change. The air grows thinner, the sounds soften, and a strange clarity enters the light. Then you break through, out of shadow into radiance. The canopy stretches in all directions like a living sea. Leaves shimmer with dew. Vines hang like green rivers between trunks. Everywhere, wings flicker. Macaws in crimson and blue, hummingbirds with throats that catch the sun like gemstones. The surface of the forest is not flat but fluid, a landscape of crowns and branches rising and falling with the wind. This world above the forest floor is another planet entirely. Scientists call it the aerial ecosystem, a suspended city of moss, orchids, bromeliads, and creatures that may never touch the ground. Each tree hosts its own community, each canopy a separate country linked by bridges of vine and air. Tiny frogs live inside bromeliad pools. Spiders hunt among hanging roots. Ants, farm-scale insects like cattle, along branches no wider than a finger. Life has colonized the sky. The air smells faintly metallic, charged by the ions of constant evaporation. A faint hum rises from millions of wings. You can feel heat rising from the leaves below, the slow exhalation of photosynthesis feeding the clouds. Above, wisps of vapor drift, merging and separating like thought itself. Birds navigate by invisible highways, following scent and color, memory and magnetism. The harpy eagle rides thermals as though held by the hand of gravity. It sees through layers of green that to human eyes are impenetrable. When it dives, air itself seems to open a path. A single feather dropped from its wings could slice through silence. Below, monkeys leap from crown to crown. Woolly, howler, spider, capuchin, their tails curling, their eyes bright with mischief. They shout, laugh, throw fruit, their noise rising and falling like waves on a living ocean. It's not chaos. It's conversation in motion. You lie on a branch broad as a boat, listening to the soft percussion of leaves rubbing in the breeze. Light falls in coins through gaps in the canopy, each beam catching particles of pollen, each pollen grain a possible forest. You watch them drift and wonder how many generations it takes for one to fall, sprout, rise to this same height again. The canopy is where the forest meets the sky and where the sky learns patience. Rain condenses here first. Small beads gathering on leaf tips, joining, dropping, beginning the cycle anew. Every drop that falls starts its journey here, at the border between cloud and chlorophyll. At midday, the humidity thickens until the line between air and leaf disappears. You can feel moisture on your skin, taste minerals in the fog. Lightning flashes miles away, and a deep murmur answers through the trees, as though the canopy itself were a drum. Epiphytes, plants that live on other plants, cling to every surface, drawing water straight from air. Their roots are silver filaments, their leaves shaped like cups to catch the briefest rain. Some hold enough water to host small fish, others become cradles for bird chicks. Entire generations begin and end without ever touching the earth. And then there are the orchids. Thousands of species, each one deliberate in its extravagance. Their blooms open like questions no one can answer. Some mimic insects, some smell of fruit, others of decay. Each evolved for one precise pollinator. Beauty here is logic disguised as art. As the sun dips, the colors shift again. The greens turn bronze, the sky dissolves into amber haze. Clouds drift low, wrapping the canopy in gauze. Somewhere distant, a macaw screams, a farewell to the light. Then the frogs begin, their calls rising from hidden pools among the leaves, high above the forest floor. You lie still and breathe the air of two worlds, earth below, sky above, and realize this is where they merge. The canopy is not a ceiling, it is a bridge. Every breath of vapor here will fall later as rain on roots, rise again as cloud, return as life. The forest's secret is not growth or beauty. It is circulation. Everything rises to fall, falls to rise. And for a quiet heartbeat, you feel yourself part of the endless climb. The rain does not stop, it changes. It becomes rhythm. It becomes law. Every drop that has fallen for months gathers now into power, and the rivers swell until the land itself must bow. The floodplain of the Amazon stretches for thousands of kilometers. When the wet season peaks, the great rivers rise 15 meters or more. They spread sideways, swallowing the forest floor, turning the basin into a drowned world of mirrors. It's called the Igapo, the flooded forest. And for half the year, trees stand half drowned, their roots hidden beneath a moving sea of their own creation. From above, it looks like a watercolor painting still wet, green bleeding into blue, shorelines erased, light bending through reflections of light. Beneath the surface, fish glide between trunks, as though swimming through the skeleton of the sky. They nibble at fruits that fall straight into the water, and their bellies become the forest's next orchard. Each seed they carry downstream will find a sandbank, a patch of sun, and start again. There is no boundary now between river and tree. Bark grows soft, leaves float, and roots taste salt and silt together. Scientists who measure oxygen here say it behaves like breathing made visible. Trees exhale into water, fish inhale through gills what once was wind. A single cycle, shared between two worlds. You paddle a small canoe through this silence. The air hums with insects. The oars disturb schools of silver fish that scatter like spilled stars. Occasionally, you hear the soft pop of fruit hitting the surface. Then the ripple of a pirarucu surfacing to swallow it whole. It is one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, armored in scales that shimmer copper in the dim light. It can breathe air, rising every few minutes to sip from the atmosphere. In the flooded forest, adaptation is not luxury, it is rule. Some birds have learned to dive for prey. Monkeys travel by vine and branch, never touching water, while snakes take to the shallows, their bodies painting cursive trails through the reflections. Cayman eyes break the surface like punctuation. The world is both written and erased at once. The flood is not disaster here. It is renewal. When the waters retreat months later, they leave behind a gift. A layer of fine silt, richer than any fertilizer. Seeds left in that soft soil explode into growth. This is how the forest resets its clock. This is how it remembers to begin again. You drift through the drowned cathedral, branches arching overhead, their tips shimmering beneath the surface. Light filters down in golden shafts, and every beam splits into wavering lines. It feels like time itself has slowed to match the pace of water. In the distance, thunder moves but never arrives. For the people who live along these rivers, the flood is part of life's rhythm. Homes are built on stilts or floating rafts. Paths become canals. Markets travel by canoe. Children learn to swim before they can walk. When the floods recede, they plant again in the fertile mud. When the waters rise, they fish from their doorsteps. There is no resistance, only rhythm. At night, the forest glows faintly from within. Bioluminescent fungi trace veins of light along the submerged trunks, and plankton sparkle when disturbed. So every paddle stroke leaves a brief comet tail of fire. It feels like sailing through a dream reflected in itself. You rest your paddle, let the canoe drift. The stars above align perfectly with their reflections below, and for a heartbeat, there is no horizon at all, only an endless, liquid sky. In that perfect symmetry, you realize why the forest floods each year. To remember the shape of balance, to remind itself that even too much can be sacred. If it knows how to return, the current catches again, gentle, insistent. The canoe moves forward without effort. You breathe in the scent of wet wood and algae, and it feels like breathing through the planet's own lungs. Everything flows. Everything finds its level, and the night carries you deeper into the quiet pulse of water and time. When the flood recedes, it does not vanish. It transforms. Rivers shrink back into their channels, leaving behind 1,000 silver threads that shimmer in the sun. What was mirror becomes meadow, and the air, once heavy with water, turns thin, dry, and sharp. The forest exhales. This is the season of wind and dust, of light so clean it cuts. Leaves harden against the heat, and vines curl tighter, conserving every drop. The floor that only weeks ago was a sea now crackles underfoot. The forest changes its tone. Less symphony, more heartbeat. Every sound seems to echo farther in the dry air. Butterflies gather by the thousands along the remaining pools, their wings beating dust into color. They drink from mud, rich with minerals, turning decay into fuel for beauty. Where water once covered everything, flowers now blaze orchids, heliconias, passion vines, bursting open as if to replace the color lost to drought. For the creatures of the canopy, this is migration time. Flocks of parrots arc across the open sky, their voices carrying miles in the clear air. Capuchins move in long trains, following the ripening trees. Tapirs wallow in shrinking ponds, coating their skin with clay against the biting flies. Life rearranges itself according to the shape of light. Even the rivers seem to breathe differently. Their flow slows, and in some stretches, the water becomes so clear that you can see fish hovering above patterns of sun, rippled across the sand. The slow current is full of pollen and dust, carrying tiny flecks of gold and seed. It is the planet's bloodstream running quietly toward the sea. In the high afternoons, wind sweeps across the canopy, bending trees in slow motion. The leaves flash silver undersides, a wave rolling through miles of green. The wind carries scent sap, fruit, warm bark, and the faint bitterness of smoke from faraway fires. But this season brings not despair. It brings the memory of rain. The air thickens with promise, the horizon trembling with heat that looks like light about to be born. As night falls, the forest cools. Frogs return to the edges of puddles, and crickets resume their endless counting of seconds. Stars appear, multiplied by reflection in the water still trapped between roots. Each one flickers, as if adjusting to the rhythm of breathing leaves. The Milky Way rises slowly, and for a few hours the forest feels weightless, suspended between what was and what will be. You sit on a fallen log and watch the fireflies trace invisible constellations. Somewhere nearby, an owl calls, its voice deep and round, a sound shaped exactly like the hollow between heartbeats. The wind answers through the trees, a single long sigh that seems to stretch from one horizon to the other. In that sound, you recognize patience again. The forest waits, always, for the return of rain, for seeds to split, for roots to find stone and circle it, for light to come back through the same leaves it left. The night grows colder, and mist begins to rise once more from the rivers. It drifts between trunks and vines, folding the edges of the world back into blur. Everything breathes slower, deeper. The pulse of the Amazon settles into its quiet season, a great heart resting before the next inhale. You close your eyes, feeling the wind brush across your face, carrying the smell of rain that hasn't fallen yet. In that scent lives every promise the forest ever kept. You understand now. The dry season is not absence. It is anticipation. It is the silence before song. Dawn arrives without hurry. The first light glides along the river's skin, and the mist above the canopy drifts apart in long, slow threads. After months of rain, flood, wind, and silence, the forest stands poised between inhale and exhale, that weightless instant before a heartbeat continues. You rise before the animals do. The air is cool, transparent, filled with the faint taste of leaf and water. Somewhere deep inside, a frog gives the first call of the morning. Another answers, then another. The rhythm of waking begins again. It feels less like repetition than remembering. Around you, everything that survived the year glows with quiet purpose. New shoots rise from the black earth. Butterflies cling to trunks, their wings still closed, waiting for warmth to lift them into the day. A tapir moves through the shallows, its reflection folding and unfolding with every step. A macaw cries once, sharp as light. Then the forest fills with color. It is not the brilliance that draws your breath. It is the harmony. Every hue, every sound, every scent seems to belong to every other. The Amazon does not begin or end. It continues. Its seasons are not separate chapters but sentences that overlap, written in chlorophyll, water, and time. You listen and realize that even stillness here is motion too slow to see. Sap climbing trunks, clouds forming from breath, stones shifting under roots. The world is working gently toward its next version of itself. The scientists who map this place with drones and satellites speak of cycles, feedbacks, equilibrium. The people who live here speak of spirit. Both are describing the same truth from different directions. Life maintaining itself by remembering itself. The forest doesn't pray, it performs devotion through existence. A breeze stirs the upper leaves, and sunlight scatters through them like coins through water. You sit at the edge of the river, and for the first time, you are not separate from anything you see. Your breath joins the vapor rising from the water. It drifts upward, invisible, becomes cloud, becomes rain again. You think of all the facts you've gathered, the chemical equations, the measurements, the names, and how each one, when whispered softly enough, becomes poetry. Science here feels like listening. Every number is an offering, every explanation a small act of love. In the distance, thunder murmurs, though no storm is near. The earth itself is talking in low frequencies, a reminder that nothing ends, only changes form. You breathe in and feel the weight of humidity, the taste of iron and sweetness. The air seems thick enough to hold you. Soon, the heat will rise again. The cycle will begin: rain, flood, sun, wind, growth, decay, rebirth. But for now, everything holds still in this one luminous breath. Even time seems content to pause. You close your eyes. Somewhere behind them, the forest continues. Light streaming through green, water finding its way to sea, roots whispering through soil. You feel your pulse slow until it matches that rhythm. And when you finally drift toward sleep, you carry with you the simplest truth of all, that the Amazon, for all its size and mystery, is made of the same pattern as your own body. Breathing, balancing, beginning again. The air warms against your skin. Leaves rustle like pages turning. A single drop of water falls from a high branch, lands near your hand, and vanishes into the earth with a sound so small you almost miss it. The forest exhales. You exhale with it, and everything fades, quietly, into peace.